Right, now then, to speed things up, I've actually done the sketch in the sense that you remember the very first thing we did was the outline, so I have drawn the outline on here, so that we don't waste time watching me draw painfully. Okay.
So could I just say, when you scaled that up, did you scale it up as carefully as you did that one?
Oh, I did a freehand, I didn't scale it up in that sense.
Right, okay.
I'm getting good, you know.
It's just like you described that you'd done that one very
Yes,
carefully.
I'd done that one very carefully, but if you like, I remembered.
Fine.
But I didn't do any actual measuring with this. I
one.
just sort of did something that looked about right.
Good.
Which is all you do anyway, isn't it?
It's muscle memory, isn't it?
Yes, in a sense. And I'm happier drawing at this size than I am at this. There we are. And I think now I'm feeling a bit more confident about actually drawing than I used to. I used to not like to draw in front of the class because I couldn't do it. Just can't draw. You know, how you think about things. But we made a determined effort, didn't we? Mm-hmm. Now we go drawing every week. Yeah. And it helps if you clean the class up before you start. Right, there
This
we
is
are.
true.
Yes, it is very true. Now, this is going to be interesting because I haven't touched watercolour since we last did it here. So we'll see how we get on. Okay, so one way of tackling this would be to paint in the shadows in ultramarine. We have done this. Has everybody done it? No. Well, perhaps I better use that method then this time, just to show people who hadn't studied it before. The thing about watercolour is if you put one colour down and let it dry and put another colour on top, if you've used the transparent colours, and most of them are, then when you put one colour on top of another, you actually change the colour. So I can paint all the shadows here in French ultramarine, or I can choose something else. Sometimes if there's a lot of yellow and it's a very hot picture, I will tend to do the shadow colours in ultramarine violet, because the violet and the yellow make a nice shadowy colour, whereas blue and yellow will make a greeny colour, and it isn't very often what you want. It's too cold for the ambience. It doesn't matter much here. So I'm going to use ultramarine to paint in the shadows. I've got the shadows, they're here, right? So I can use this and I don't want it that dark, so I'm going to take a bit of water with it. Now, if you remember, this is sloping, and as it runs down, this is the colour that I get, not that colour. That's concentrated because of there's a depth of pigment in the water. This is the colour I will get when it dries. It'll be what's up here. Okay, so what have we got? Well, we've got. Well, I'll start over here. This tree is in shadow. I think that's too dark for that, frankly. I really do. I'm going to blot that out. You are. It's still there, but I've just quietened it down a bit. Take some of the paint off. This is in shadow here. And it goes there. And there's a shadow along here, under the eaves. And that's in shadow. Right, okay, when we get over here, there's a shadow here. I quite like that broken line, it's rather nice. I think there's a waste pipe here. Which very handily marks the edge of the building, which is good. Right, this is a bush if you remember. And because it's a bush, I can push the paint about with the brush. It's a dark bush, so and it's got interesting edges on it. So it just makes it a nice bushy shape. But it comes down here and meets the top of the wall there. Take some more paint and just drop it in at the bottom of the wall there. I'm creating the shadow on the shadow, if you like, of that. It probably isn't dark enough, but it'll do. There was some up here too. And again, if I can, and then there was something up here, some kind of plant growing up here, which came from an interest that actually defines that wall, which is rather nice. Something like that. Then there was this little area here, around here. I don't want to draw a line because it wasn't exactly a line, it was just a shadow thrown by the bricks of the top of the wall. And there was this area was in shadow about there, but I want that to spread, to suggest the curve. There we are. So I just wet it, and then if I can run just a dry brush down that edge there, just makes everything fade in. Do you see that's got a curve on it already?
Yep.
Maybe I can paint after all. Right, so we had this little edge here. We also said there was a shadow here. And that, not quite sure. Now I want to be careful here because the top of the handrail is shiny, so it's white. So I don't want to get paint on it if I can avoid it. So I've got to go underneath it. There's the post, right, okay, so I can come down here. I'm painting the shadow on the wall. Okay, and it comes along here a bit. You don't have to make that. And there's a bit of a shadow down here. Yep. Which is rather nice. Okay. So that again is a bit strong. I don't want that edge to be so sharp, so I'll soften it with water so that it comes this way a bit. Now there's a post there, but the post is darker than the shadow, so I can soften that edge, and then if I dry the brush really properly and just run a dry brush down that bit, it just makes that transition from slight colour to no colour less anarchic, if you like. It's gone a bit funny there, but it's okay. Nobody's going to notice that when I finish the pictures. No, it looks good. Okay, so you can see what's happening. The picture is appearing slowly. There's a shadow up here, which is fatter here, and oh, aren't they wonderful, these points? See, lovely brushes, aren't they? Gorgeous. And there's a line of shadow there. This is in shadow. All of this is in shadow. So I can just pull the paint down. And we reach, because that's inside the shop. And if we look at it, oh, come on, need some more of this. I never make enough colour. Okay. Normally doesn't bother me much. Because if you make a different shade of the same thing, it's, you know, it's an okay thing to do. There's a shadow underneath the windowsill. And again, I've got to be careful not to go over the shiny balustrade. Okay, is that dry? Don't really want to touch it. Right, there's quite a strong shadow down here. Well, not a shadow, it's the post, isn't it? It's quite strong, this post. And that comes over the step, which you can't see, but I can. Right, and that comes down here. That's going to have to get darker, but we'll work it out. I wonder if this will go berserk here. No, this works. The slipper fits. There we are. Right, that's coming nicely. If I'm really pernickety, and I sometimes can be, I want to put a shadow on the edge of the balustrade. I've got a shaky pull. It's just the slight side on the balustrade. Comes up to there somehow. Right, okay. Now, this has also got quite a dark area here, which slopes up and comes down neatly to the, which helps with the perspective lines, you know, if you're trying to get the windowsill in the right place. Right, okay. So let's go to the steps. Being left-handed, I started over there and I'm coming this way. If you're right-handed, for heaven's sake, go the other way. Yeah, don't feel constrained to do it left-handed, unless you are left-handed. Side of the brush, use the whole of the brush to get the shape, if it helps, and it does. This is definitely a dark area. This is in shadow here, and if I take the strokes down like that, even though they'll run together and it won't matter much. It does somehow inform the picture that that's what you did. And these come down here. And this one was quite interesting, wasn't it? There's some interesting little bits on this. So, putting in those shadows helps to define the picture. There is a shadow here, again thicker at this end than it is as it goes round there. If you haven't got a shaky paw, it makes it life a bit easier. That's got a shadow underneath it. There, the white line there. And we've got a bit of shadow coming down here. But again, I don't want it to be so hard-edged as that. So I run a damp brush to pull it down a little bit. Soften that edge there. I don't want that to be so strong. It just makes it a little quieter when you And then down here, inside the shop, the shop is painted white. I won't be painting it white particularly, but it is white. So I would have to bear that in mind. You know, you can't just paint over everything. Seems to be something that comes down here. Here we go. And that stops on that line there, which immediately allows you inside the shop. Which is all nice. Right, so we have this here. But again, I don't want that sharp like that. Oh yeah. Just narrow it down a little bit. How are we doing shadow-wise? We're getting there, oops, didn't want that colour. It wouldn't hurt. I think that is indigo, which is a sort of blue. It's a greeny blue. It's a sort of blue that you get a lot of in English skies. Now this is quite dark here, so I can go over this bit, putting in a bit more shadow. This is very dark under here. So I can go on top of that, really making the most of the shadows that I can. And then if I add just a little bit of water, I can make this a less less troublesome corner, if you like. It's a bit mucky around the. Again, I don't want that hard edge. So I take the paint with a dry brush, dryish brush, and just fade off the edges a little bit, so it just fades up a little bit. And then we've got this bit here also, which will produce a shadow, because that's what happens, isn't it? You get these in the corners. The whole thing is a little bit dense. Now I can start to tisivate those shadows. I haven't put any colour on yet, but already the picture reads. Right? You see? So, and all I've done is concentrate on one thing. I haven't thought, is this dark, is this light? I'm just putting in the shadows where they are meaningful in the picture. Right?
So you're distinguishing between a dark colour and a shadow?
Not particularly. These are dark colours.
Yeah.
These are shadows.
Yes.
But
so both?
Both,
Yeah,
yes.
okay.
The dark is whatever it happens to be, so to speak. To help the picture read. That's all you're after. You want the picture to read properly. There is a little shadow underneath this. I don't want to make a lot of that. And there was a shadow there too. I don't think there was a shadow there, but that will come with colour, so I'm not worried about it. I think that caught the light, but it probably didn't catch the light as much as the white paint, so we'll just put in a faint touch of colour. Now you'll notice I haven't painted the wall, this wall. It's brick. It is in shadow. This, you know, all this side is in shadow really, but I know what colour bricks are, sort of thing. I've got a vague idea, and I don't need to emphasise that at this stage. I could do it, but I don't feel I particularly want to do that now. I'll just use the thin brush to titivate some of those shadows. For instance, this was very dark here, so if I use the thin brush and take my paint thicker over the shadow, it points it up a little bit, and then this shadow here left the shape of the flagstone and for some reason came under the brick part of the steps, you know, the construction of the steps. And if you remember, there was contact shadow here, where the flag met the bricks that created the step. And I'm not making a straight line of it, so I don't think that helps. I think, in effect, this would be darker. So, use the big brush. You've got a big brush, use a big brush. So I'm going to make this part a lot darker. Right, so we've got some differentiation between this and the part that shows up here. Contact shadow there. And was there? Yes, there appears to be a contact shadow here. Very often there's one at the bottom too, but that looks a bit like drawing lines around it, and I don't want to do that. Okay, I think I've got most of the shadows in now, so I can start to think about the colour where the paint is dry, because that has to dry. If I try to put colour on top of it when it's wet, they will melt, and I might even get cauliflowers because of the amount of water in the paint I'm putting on top. So if you're putting a wash on top of a wash, you want the underlying wash to dry thoroughly before you move. If you want them to blend, that's a different matter. You work wet and wet, you sort of bash in straight away and get the colour that you want. Okay, so what can I do while I'm waiting? Well, I could do something about these wretched bricks, couldn't I? And I've got 2 lots of blue water. Already.
Would you like us to change one?
No, it's all right.
You've done about 20 minutes.
Have I? Okay. Right, so what colour am I going to do for the bricks? I think I'll use alizarin. So I'm just taking a bit of water and dropping it on the colour I'm thinking of using for the alizarin. A bit of, believe it or not, that is sienna. Pretty filthy. I think those two together might just give me what I want. So let's see what I get. Now this is quite a big area that I'm going to do. I need to think about how I'm going to do it, and work out how much paint I need, and
Slightly less.
Hmm?
Mix slightly less.
Mix slightly less, yes, because I always do. So the burnt sienna is slightly orangey by comparison with the alizarin, which is a bluey red. And that, oh dear.
Have to put it on the sketch.
Yeah, I'll put it up there. It gives me that colour. Yeah, that's not how I like. What am I going to add to that?
Like that, Steve.
Oh, bless you, thank you. I just have to hope nobody wants to frame the picture. Okay, so that is that colour, right? Which is all right, actually. It'll probably do. Okay, so I need more of it, because if I'm going to paint all of that and this, I really need to bung it on, don't I? So let's mix some more. The more paint you collect in your brush, the better. And you will find you still haven't made enough. Put a bit more brown in there. Got a lovely big hole in here, I've been twisting the brush. Right, okay, that'll do. I'll add a bit of water to that. Wrong colour. Right. Okay, there we are. That looks a bit more. I'm going to stand up if you don't mind. Yeah, this is a major occasion. Right, so If I was doing that size, I think what I would do is paint it with water first.
Head.
Sorry. Now I've got to be careful here. Good thing I did this actually, because there is the end of the what do you call the thing? Handrail, yes.
That's the word.
That's the bunny. And there's a bit up there. Which is trouble me some. Well, this is clear water. It helps me define those steps. And that there. Oops, sorry, head in the way again. Beg your pardon. This bit is alright. Watch the rain. Watch the rain, my darling, while the gentlemen go by.
5 and 20
Yep,
That's the one.
that's the bunny.
Dirty water now.
Oh,
Dirty water.
So you put dirty water
did
on
I?
this
Well, it didn't
canvas.
show. It didn't show.
No, there you are. It was only mildly dirty.
I probably should have taken an area somewhere as a stop, you know, but there's such a lot of this to do. Now you see, I've put the water directly on top of that, there, and it hasn't run. So I want I love you bunny. I think I'll paint with that brush actually. Right, so take some water. Take your colour, run it in. Good things, flat brushes, aren't they?
Are you letting the water take it to the edges, or are you going right up to the edges?
I'm going up to the edges with the thing, but because I pre-wet,
Yeah.
it's not going on in lumps, it's going on more like a wash.
Yes.
No, I didn't want to do that, that's what I wanted to do.
Yeah, but you've made it okay now if you wanted to frame it.
That's very true.
Well, that's why I put it there.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Now that has changed that blue to a sort of purple shadow. Right, so that it's lost its blueness in the redness of the walls itself. Okay, so that works all right. And if I go to the greens, this is how I would paint it, you know. Won't leap about like this. Green. Right, I'll choose Viridian. I like Viridian. That's not Viridian.
You had red on the brush.
Yes, probably. See if I'm any better this time. It's a bit more like, isn't it? Right, so I'm taking that. I don't need so much this time because I'm only going to do those bushes. And I'll take a bit of burnt sienna. Just takes the edge off the green and makes it more of a sort of holly colour. Now if I go over those, there, and I can even go beyond it, and I can go over this bush here, because it will come out lighter. and this up here, all in, in one wash, so to speak. Don't need to stick to the shapes because plants don't do that. And if I want to make that darker, I can pick up my green and quite a bit of the blue. Right, that is darker, but I want more paint, less water pigment. Right, so I want to make it darker here where it is underneath, and be a little bit underneath there. And this also runs in shadow down here, coming up a bit to the, and you can see there that without mixing a different colour, I got a light plant and a dark plant, which helps. Now, I'm not going to spend much more time painting because you can see what happens when you do it this way. You do, in fact, change the colour. The blue underneath changes the colour that is on top. Right, you've only seen it in a couple of places. I could put this colour on here because this was, in fact... Oh, isn't this fun? Come on, colour up blue. Right, so it just changes, the blue starts to go and you start to see, and of course there's this wall here also. Now this wouldn't be the end of it, this is just the basic, and if I wasn't trying to hurry it, I would be making more variations now, but there we are. There's just not enough paint to finish that off. But there we are. You've just got an idea of how it works. So that would be one way of tackling working from that to that, because you've got the shadows there. If you put the shadows in here, when you add the colour on top, you change the colours as you go, but you've got your shadows in the right place. Dead easy. It just makes it a little bit more simple. Instead of saying, that's a green bush, what green shall I do? And that's a bush beside it. How am I going to get them to go together? Instead of trying to match the colours that you see, use the colours in the picture. Normally, I wouldn't have done this flat. I would have started introducing other colours that you do get in bricks as you were painting this. I just wanted the picture to read for you, so that you would get an impression on how to go about it. Okay.